Hey everybody, before the review starts, I just want to give a heads up that later down the line, I start to get angry at this episode's bad writing, and at several points I kinda go off script, and I start yelling profanity into the mic. I'm sure you'll take that as a good sign. Enjoy!
But I didn't mean to!
Thank you for helping me break their induced spirit by destroying her reputation. But I can't have you running off and telling her my plan.
Okay, what the
So apparently Daring Done isn't just another Daring Do episode, it'll also be another anthology episode with a side story tying into the comics. On top of that, we get to travel to a new location, which means more exploration in Equestria. All of this sounds pretty interesting, but it doesn't guarantee that the episode will be good. So is it good? Well, no, not really. As a matter of fact, it's quite bad, and it only gets worse the more you actually think about it. Right now, I just feel bad that something with promising potential behind it ended up getting turned into such a badly constructed episode. But I digress. Rainbow Dash learns from the local newspaper that Daring Do is retiring from books and adventuring. Knowing that Daring Do would never just retire out of the blue, Rainbow Dash begins to believe that something is wrong. With Pinkie by her side, she travels to her house to learn why. And Daring tells them that it's because her adventures have recently caused trouble for a village in southern Equestria. Determined to restore her reputation, Rainbow Dash takes Daring to the village of Somnambula, where stories of Daring's damage can be found. While trying to convince the townsfolk that Daring is good, they learn of a historical tale of a Pegasus who brought hope to the village. The story of Somnambula. And just when you think it's gonna get interesting, it turns into a dumbed-down Indiana Jones chase, as Daring and Pinkie must now rescue Rainbow Dash, who has been kidnapped as a result of her own stupidity. Okay, so what exactly makes this episode so annoying? Well, for starters, the structure of the story is terrible. I mean, you got Daring Do who's just gonna decide to give up because of one bad turn of events. This idea has been done better in other shows and movies, and because of the limited runtime of the episode and what it chooses to focus on, it doesn't develop any good arguments as to why Daring should just give up and retire because of this one bad turn of events. Aside from that, the plot points are so badly presented and so riddled with plot holes that you'd swear that this was some kind of rushed fanfiction. For instance, we're simply told that Daring Do's books are never sold in southern Equestria, so no one knows who A.K. Yearling is. That's just nuts. Are they just going to simply convince us that after all this time, no one has ever imported her books down south? Or no one from the north ever traveled to the south to talk about them? It can't be from an old grudge that happened a long time ago, because Daring is just learning about the collateral damage that was being reported there. For all we know, someone could have easily traveled north to south and walk up to someone and say, "Oh hey, have you ever read this cool series of books by A.K. Yearling?" And then they would be like, "Wait a minute, why is this person writing stories about Daring Do?" And for that matter, doesn't it contradict the idea of her identity being secret if half the country knows who she really is? So no one from the south ever traveled to the north either to talk about stuff that Daring Do does? This is not only badly explained, it's confusing as hell. This is supposed to be a major plot point in the story, and it's briefly given to us in the first 4 minutes with the laziest hand wave away imaginable. And if you thought that was bad, it gets so much worse from there. Apparently, no one is able to recognize the obvious villain in a cloak who arrived in town at the same time that all of the green glowy things are being stolen. And he's able to easily convince the townspeople to follow everything he says? I mean, in the scene where Dash says that Somnambula would appreciate Daring Do's heroics, he follows it up with "she broke the statue" and they go back to booing her. Okay, wait a minute, if the townspeople people were still pissed off over the statue, why would they momentarily think positively of her? And then, Rainbow Dash is captured in plain view in the public square without anyone noticing, and why would Dash just allow herself to get kidnapped? She didn't try flying away or punch or kick any of them off of her? Was the heat of the sun just turning her into an incompetent fucking moron? And how would the no-fly spell still be in effect if the Sphinx had been gone this whole time? She couldn't have cast the spell on the room itself because she was able to fly out of it when Somnambula beat her. And then all of a sudden it's just in effect when Daring Do tries to... no. The Sphinx was not there to cast anything on Daring Do, so how is this happening? What was going on? Were they really just that absent-minded when writing the story for this episode? How can something so obviously there in plain view be so easily overlooked? That's like the easiest plot hole they could have avoided in this episode, and it still manages to be in the story? And those steam thingies that they jump across, they literally appear out of thin fucking air because they weren't in the pit of goo when they looked down the first time. Even in the shot of her jumping into the pit, it doesn't show the steam thingies in the goo, and then in the following shot, they just magically appear? No, fuck you! Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you! And then they catch up to the bad guy, and the townspeople rejoice suddenly, treating her like a hero? But why? She still caused all of that damage and never denied doing any of it, including destroying that priceless statue you were so angry about. You start to praise her before she tries making up for all of the collateral damage she caused. Wait a fuck, if paying back the collateral damage was so easy, why didn't she try doing that the first time? Did she just not think highly of it, or just simply believe that she was beyond redeeming herself? And the priceless statue is just easily replaced, but it was a priceless statue! The villagers said it themselves, and suddenly they're all cheering and applauding despite that thousands of years of honor and sentimentism was destroyed? That wasn't just a statue, it was a historical landmark. It was built in honor of a legendary hero who saved the village a long time ago, and you suddenly treat it as insignificant or replaceable? What the fuck happened here? Did you not proof check this? Did you not read this more than twice before doing the animation for this episode? Like, what the hell is wrong with you people? God, this episode is so fucking stupid!
Ow! Keep it together, man!
Phew. Thanks, Nigel. Anyway... this episode's writing is just really, really, really bad. And it's just a shame that this happened because it looks like it could have gone for something very interesting. And it ends up turning into such a generic and convoluted turn of events. I mean, look at the name of the episode and think about what it entails. This could have been a very well-meaning episode about Daring Do actually retiring, for an injury or for simply wanting to settle down and do something else with her life. Rainbow Dash could have learned a great lesson about accepting when to let things go, how people move on with their lives, and how it can be for the better. Instead, it just turns into another Indiana Jones-based episode, which isn't a bad synopsis for an episode, but when paired with a title like that, it just feels misrepresentative. Even the pacing is so back and forth and so badly directed because of the sudden shifts in tone. First it's about Daring Do wanting to retire, and then an ancient story of Somnambula is told, and then those bad guys capture Rainbow Dash and Daring and Pinky have to save her, and in the last 2 minutes all of the bad ties between Daring and the village are fully resolved in a very rushed manner. I get that they wanted to do another Daring Do adventure episode, but the way it's done here is so horrendously written and so disappointingly executed. It tries to have a meaningful tie-in with the themes of hope and believing in yourself, but because because the episode is so badly written and directed, it just feels completely unconvincing. And what makes it even more frustrating is that there's actually good stuff in the episode. The music is really good. It complements the Egyptian setting and has a consistent melody. The story of Somnambula is great. Not only does its art style have a highly detailed and professionally crafted use of ancient Egyptian architecture, but in its 3 minutes of screen time, it's brilliantly narrated and paced. It explains why her story means so much to this village and why they would build a lot of their culture based on it. It explores some of Equestria's ancient history, exploring the lifestyle of old times as well as the life of this one person who made a difference. And knowing that it's another one of those tie-ins with the comics makes it feel like it's part of a much larger story, which helps to make it feel more interesting. And Diane in this episode is easily at her best as a supporting character. Her cheerful and bubbly hijinks offer a lot of good jokes without distracting from the story, which I honestly can't decide if that's actually a good or bad thing at this point. A lot of her jokes are even appropriately melded into the story, making them funnier and well-timed. Furthermore, she's much more assertive, open-minded, optimistic, and reasonable than Dash in Daring. The way she acts as a supportive drive for Daring to believe in herself, as well as a monitor for Dash's fan tendencies, is really entertaining. She's the adult in this situation, which is so hilariously ironic. And she also presents herself as more experienced and wise because of how she takes after the lessons of hope from Somnambula's story, which I find interesting because it feels like it's creating a connection between the two, just like it was making a connection with the older sister figures in Campfire Tales. It gives you this kind of subtle hint that it's going to lead into something big, which would make sense if it's going to tie into the season finale, but that's really only about as good as it gets. Pinky is a really good side character who provides a lot of good humor, the mythology surrounding Somnambula is interesting, and even traveling to a new location in Equestria and learning some of its history adds some nice culture to it. But when you really look at it as a story, it's an absolute mess. It's honestly a top contender for the worst episode of the season. No good qualities this episode had could even remotely justify its horrendous writing. Its story structure is so bafflingly bad, and it just gets worse and worse the more you think about it. All I can say for now is that hopefully the next episode will be a lot less painful. MisAnthro Pony, over and out.